Zara pressed her face against the cold viewport of the orbital station, watching the human ships dock with all the grace of drunk metallic whales. Her violet skin shimmered with nervous energy, and her forearms fidgeted with her translator device. 3 months she had been waiting here. 3 whole months of watching these bizarre bipedal creatures stumble around like newborn calves, and yet somehow managed to build the most terrifyingly efficient war machines in the galaxy. Stupid humans, she muttered, then immediately felt guilty. She needed their help after all. The docking bay doors hissed open, and out stepped Captain Jake Morrison, followed by his crew. Zara had done her research on this particular human. 32 years old, had somehow survived 17 different suicide missions, and apparently enjoyed something called pizza. More than most humans valued their own lives. His reputation for getting impossible jobs done was legendary, though his methods were questionable. "Captain Morrison," Zara called out, her voice cracking with desperation. She scurried toward him on her 6 legs, noting how the human's hand instinctively moved to his weapon. Trust issues, apparently. Jake stopped walking and studied the alien girl in front of him. She was small, maybe 4 feet tall, with skin that shifted between purple and silver, depending on her emotions. Her large golden eyes were rimmed with tears, and she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. "You're the one who sent the distress signal?" Jake asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Yes, that's me." Zara practically bounced with relief. "My name is Zara Vex, and my mother, Luna Vex, is trapped in the Sky Hunter's nest on Kepler 442 billion. Please, you have to help me. The Galactic Council says it's too dangerous, but humans are crazy enough to try anything." Jake's eyebrow shot up. "Crazy enough? Well, that's definitely going on my resume under special skills." He looked back at his crew, a motley collection of humans who seemed equal parts amused and concerned. "Sky Hunter's nest, huh? Those the giant bird things that can fly through space." "They're not birds," Zara exclaimed, then caught herself. "I mean, yes, they look like birds, but they're actually sentient energy beings that feed on stellar radiation. And they're about the size of your battleships. The nest is on a planet that orbits so close to its star that the surface temperature could melt most metals." "Sounds toasty," commented Dr. Elena Vasquez, Jake's chief medical officer. She was a short, stocky woman with graying hair and the kind of sardonic smile that suggested she'd seen too much weird stuff to be properly shocked anymore. "What exactly is your mother doing in a place like that?" Zara's skin shifted to a deeper purple, which Jake was learning meant embarrassment. She's a xenobiologist. She was studying the Sky Hunters' mating rituals when they decided she would make a good addition to their collection. Collection. Jake's other crew member, tech specialist Marcus Wong, looked up from his datapad. He was young, probably mid-20s, with the kind of enthusiastic energy that made him dangerous around explosives. "Like they collect sentient beings?" "Not exactly," Zara said, wringing her hands, all 4 of them. "Sky Hunters are incredibly intelligent, but they don't understand that other species need specific environmental conditions to survive. To them, keeping my mother in their nest is like keeping a pretty pet. They don't realize they're slowly killing her." Jake felt a familiar anger building in his chest. It was the same feeling he got whenever bullies picked on something smaller than themselves. Except this time the bullies were giant space birds and the victim was an alien scientist who probably just wanted to study pretty creatures. "How long has she been missing?" he asked. 4 months, Zara whispered. Her last transmission said the heat was becoming unbearable, and her environmental suit was starting to fail. That was 6 weeks ago. The docking bay fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Jake looked at his crew, reading their expressions. Elena was already calculating medical scenarios in her head. Marcus was probably figuring out what kind of equipment they'd need. And Jake was remembering why he became a rescue specialist in the first place. "Okay," he said finally, "let's talk specifics. What do we know about these Sky Hunters?" Zara's skin immediately brightened to a hopeful silver. "Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I have all the data my mother collected before she was captured." She fumbled with a small device and projected a holographic display showing massive, elegant creatures that looked like a cross between eagles and dragons, and with wings made of pure energy. "Beautiful," Elena murmured. "Absolutely beautiful, and probably absolutely deadly." "They're about 300 meters long," Zara continued, "with wingspan reaching nearly 500 meters. They can survive in the vacuum of space, fly at sublight speeds, and their wings generate electromagnetic pulses that can disable most ship systems." "Most ship systems," Marcus repeated thoughtfully. "What about hardened military systems?" "Unknown," Zara admitted. "No one's ever been stupid enough to fly a warship that close to their nest." Jake grinned. "Well, there's a first time for everything." "What about the planet itself?" "Kepler 442 billion is tidally locked to its star," Zara explained, manipulating the hologram to show a world half bathed in eternal daylight, half in perpetual darkness. The day side reaches temperatures of over 2000 degrees Celsius. The night side is frozen solid. The sky hunters build their nests in the Terminator zone, where the temperatures are merely lethal instead of instantly fatal. "Merely lethal," Jake repeated. "I like the optimism. What kind of protection are we talking about?" "Full environmental suits rated for extreme temperature variations, electromagnetic shielding, and probably some kind of backup life support," Elena said, already making notes. "We'll need to modify the ship's hull to handle those temperatures and electromagnetic interference." "The nest itself is built into a series of floating rock formations," Zara continued. "The sky hunters use their energy manipulation abilities to keep the rocks suspended in the planet's upper atmosphere. It's like a floating city, except it's made of stone and inhabited by giant space eagles who don't understand that other species need to breathe." Marcus looked up from his calculations. "Floating rocks, how do we even land on something like that?" "Very carefully," Jake said dryly. "What about the sky hunters themselves? Are they hostile?" Zara hesitated. "Not exactly. They're curious about other life forms, but they don't really understand the concept of individual rights or personal freedom. To them, interesting creatures are meant to be preserved and studied." "They're not evil, just alien." "Great," Elena muttered. "Benevolent kidnappers. Those are always the hardest to deal with because you can't just shoot them and feel good about it." "Can we communicate with them?" Jake asked. "My mother was working on that," Zara said sadly. "Her last transmission mentioned that she was making progress with some kind of harmonic language based on electromagnetic frequency modulation. But the sky hunters seem to communicate primarily through energy patterns that most universal translators can't interpret." Jake walked over to the viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien scientist was slowly dying while her captors lovingly tended to what they thought was their newest prize specimen. It was the kind of situation that made his blood boil and his brain start working overtime. "What's our timeline?" he asked. "Her environmental suit was designed to last 6 months maximum," Zara said quietly. "Even if she's managed to extend that somehow, we're running out of time. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe less. 2 weeks to plan a rescue mission to a planet that could melt our ship, inhabited by giant energy-manipulating space birds who think kidnapping is a form of wildlife conservation." Jake summarized. "Sounds like a Tuesday." Marcus laughed despite himself. "Remember that time on Proxima 3 when we had to rescue that mining crew from the sentient lava flows?" "That was different," Jake said. "The lava flows were actively trying to kill us. These sky hunters are just misguided. Misguided creatures that can disable our ship and leave us stranded on a planet hot enough to use as a blast furnace," Elena pointed out helpfully. "Details," Jake waved dismissively. Then he turned back to Zara, his expression serious. "Here's the deal, kid. This is going to be dangerous. More dangerous than anything we've attempted before. There's a very real chance we won't make it back. Are you sure your mother would want us to risk our lives for hers?" Zara's golden eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady when she answered. My mother has spent her entire life studying other species so that different races could understand each other better. She believes that the universe is more beautiful when everyone gets along. If she knew that humans were willing to risk their lives to save her, she would say that proves her life's work was worthwhile. Jake felt something twist in his chest. It might have been heartburn from the station's terrible coffee, but it felt suspiciously like respect. All right then, he said. Let's go save your mum from her well-meaning captors. But first, we're going to need a bigger ship. 3 days later, Jake stood in the cargo bay of the newly acquired heavy cruiser Relentless, watching his crew install experimental heat-resistant plating and electromagnetic shields. The ship looked like someone had wrapped a perfectly functional warship in aluminum foil and duct tape, but Marcus assured him the modifications would work. Probably. The good news, Marcus announced, sliding out from under a power conduit with his face covered in grease, is that the electromagnetic shielding should protect us from the Sky Hunter's wing pulses. The bad news is that it's completely untested technology that might explode if we look at it wrong. Define explode, Elena said from where she was checking medical supplies. Anywhere from mild fireworks display to spontaneous conversion into component atoms, Marcus replied cheerfully. I love the specificity, Jake muttered. What about the heat shielding? Should work great, Marcus said. The material is designed to handle temperatures up to 3,000 degrees. Of course, we're heading into an environment that reaches 2,000 degrees, so we have a comfortable safety margin of about 1,000 degrees before we all become human-flavored jerky. Zara, who had been quietly reviewing her mother's research data, looked up with concern. Is it normal for human rescue operations to have this much potential for catastrophic failure? Jake and his crew exchanged glances. Define normal, Elena said. Well, Jake said thoughtfully, the last rescue mission only had a 60% chance of everyone dying horribly, so this is actually an improvement. Zara's skin shifted through several colors before settling on a queasy green. How are your species still alive? Stubbornness and spite, Jake replied. Plus, we're too stupid to know when something is impossible. That actually explains a lot about human military history, Zara admitted. The next morning, they were ready to depart. The Relentless looked like a patchwork quilt of advanced technology and desperate improvisation, but all systems were showing green. Jake settled into the captain's chair and looked around at his crew. Everyone ready to do something incredibly stupid in the name of interspecies friendship? Ready, Captain, Elena replied. All systems nominal and thoroughly untested, Marcus reported. Coordinates locked in, announced their pilot Sarah Chen, a calm, precise woman who could fly through an asteroid field blindfolded, but got nervous ordering food at restaurants. Kepler 442 billion is approximately 72 hours away at maximum FTL. And my mother's location? Zara asked anxiously. According to the last tracking data, she should be in the primary nest structure on the day side of the Terminator zone, Jake said. We'll drop out of FTL at the edge of the system and scan for Sky Hunter activity before moving in. What if they detect us first? Zara asked. Jake's grin was slightly unhinged. Then we improvise. The FTL jump to Kepler 442 was smooth, which immediately made everyone nervous. In Jake's experience, missions that started smoothly were saving up all their complications for later, when they would be maximally inconvenient. Dropping out of FTL in 30 seconds, Sarah announced. The familiar sensation of reality reasserting itself washed over them as they returned to normal space. Through the viewport, Kepler 442 billion hung before them like a jewel from hell, one half blazing with the fury of its too-close star, the other half dark as the void between galaxies. Scanning for Sky Hunter activity, Marcus reported, his fingers dancing across his console. I'm picking up, oh wow. Good wow or bad wow? Jake asked. There are dozens of them, Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. Maybe hundreds. They're flying in formation around the planet like some kind of living orbital defense grid. On the main screen, the long-range sensors painted a picture that made everyone's breath catch. The Sky Hunters were magnificent, their energy wings leaving trails of light as they soared through space with impossible grace. They moved like dancers, like living art, like nothing any human had ever seen before. "They're beautiful," Sarah whispered. "They're also completely surrounding our destination," Elena pointed out. "How exactly are we supposed to get past them?" Jake studied the sensor readings, his mind working through possibilities. The Sky Hunters weren't acting aggressively, but they were definitely maintaining a perimeter around their planet. Getting past them would require either incredible stealth or incredible luck, or incredible stupidity. "Marcus," Jake said slowly, "what would happen if we broadcast a distress signal?" "A distress signal," Marcus blinked. "Captain, that would bring every Sky Hunter in the system straight to us." "Exactly," Jake said. "Zara, you said these creatures are curious about other life forms, right? That they like to collect interesting specimens." "Yes," but Zara's eyes widened as she realized what he was suggesting. Oh no, no, you want them to capture us?" "It's the perfect infiltration plan," Jake said. "We make ourselves look helpless and vulnerable. They bring us to their nest to add us to their collection, and then we break out and rescue your mother." "That's the worst plan I've ever heard," Elena said flatly. "I know," Jake replied. "Isn't it great?" 20 minutes later, the Relentless was drifting through space with half its systems deliberately disabled, and broadcasting a distress signal that would have made a drama teacher weep with pride. Jake had insisted on recording the message himself, complete with dramatic pauses and what he called appropriately panicked breathing. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Relentless. We've suffered catastrophic engine failure and our life support is failing. We have injured crew members and are in desperate need of assistance. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help." Marcus had added some very convincing sparks and smoke effects to the bridge, while Sarah made the ship's trajectory look like they were barely maintaining control. Elena had prepared fake injuries that would fool scanners but not actually harm anyone, and Zara was hidden in a shielded compartment with strict instructions to stay quiet no matter what happened. "Here they come," Sarah announced, watching the sensors. 3 Sky Hunters, approaching from the starboard side. They're gorgeous." Through the viewport, they could see the creatures approaching. Up close, they were even more magnificent than the long-range scans had suggested. Their bodies seemed to be made of living light, constantly shifting between brilliant gold and deep amber. Their wings weren't really wings at all, but flowing streams of energy that propelled them through space with impossible elegance. "Remember," Jake said quietly, "we're helpless victims. No sudden movements, no threatening gestures, and for the love of all that's holy, nobody make any jokes about roasted chicken." The largest Sky Hunter positioned itself directly in front of their ship, and suddenly the bridge was filled with a sound like wind chimes mixed with a symphony orchestra. It was hauntingly beautiful and completely incomprehensible. "That's their language," Jake whispered. "They're trying to communicate." The sound changed, becoming more complex, more urgent. Then, without warning, the ship was surrounded by a golden glow, and they began moving toward the planet. "We're being tracked," Sarah reported unnecessarily, since everyone could feel the ship accelerating under external control. "This is it," Jake said. "Everyone remember the plan. Once we're inside the nest, we locate Lunar Vex, figure out how to communicate with our hosts and negotiate her release." "Simple. Simple," Elena repeated. "Right. What could go wrong?" The answer, as it turned out, was everything. The Sky Hunter nest was nothing like what any of them had expected. Instead of crude rock formations, they found themselves approaching what could only be described as a floating palace. Massive stone platforms hung in the planet's upper atmosphere, connected by bridges of pure energy and dotted with structures that seemed to grow organically from the rock itself. "It's a city," Marcus breathed. "They built a floating city." More than that, Zara's voice crackled through the comm system from her hiding place. Look at the architecture. Those aren't just buildings, they're habitat modules. Each one is designed for a different species. Jake studied the structures through binoculars. She was right. Some of the buildings were filled with water, others with different atmospheric mixes. One appeared to be a miniature jungle, complete with what looked like actual trees. They really are collectors, he murmured. This whole place is like a zoo. A very pretty zoo where the exhibits slowly die from environmental incompatibility, Elena added grimly. The Relentless was guided to a landing platform that adjusted its atmosphere to match their ship's specs. As the engines powered down, Jake could see sky hunters gathering around them, their energy wings folding in what might have been curiosity or excitement. "Showtime," Jake announced. Everyone looked appropriately grateful and helpless. The airlock opened, and they stepped out onto the platform. The first thing that hit them was the heat. Even with their environmental suits, they could feel the temperature differential. The second thing was the sound. The sky hunters were singing, a complex harmony that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The largest sky hunter, the one that had initially approached them, glided forward. Up close it was massive, easily the size of a building, but its movements were so graceful that it seemed almost weightless. It lowered its magnificent head and made a series of melodic sounds. "I think it's trying to welcome us," Jake said. "Or asking if we prefer to be grilled or roasted," Marcus muttered. The sky hunter's head tilted, and suddenly Jake felt a strange tingling in his mind. Images flashed through his consciousness, their ship in distress, the sky hunter's concern, their desire to help and preserve these interesting new creatures. "It's telepathic," he gasped. "Not fully, but it's projecting emotions and simple concepts." More sky hunters gathered around them, and Jake felt waves of curiosity, benevolence, and something that might have been joy. These creatures were genuinely happy to meet them, thrilled to add them to their collection of interesting life forms, which was exactly the problem. One of the sky hunters gestured with a wing toward a structure that looked like it had been designed for humanoid life forms. Through its transparent walls, Jake could see what appeared to be a comfortable living space, complete with furniture, books, and all the amenities a person might need. All the amenities except freedom. "Zara," Jake whispered into his comm, "are you getting this?" "I see it." Her voice was tight with emotion. "Captain, that structure in the center of the platform, the one that looks like a greenhouse. I think that's where they're keeping my mother." Jake followed her gaze and felt his heart sink. The greenhouse structure was beautiful, filled with what looked like alien plants and comfortable furniture. But through the transparent walls he could see a figure slumped over a desk, not moving. "Elena," he said quietly, "medical assessment. Now." Elena was already focusing her binoculars on the structure. "Vital signs are weak but present. She's alive, but barely. Severe dehydration and heat exhaustion. We need to get her out of there now." The sky hunters were still singing their welcoming song, completely oblivious to the fact that their hospitality was killing their guest. Jake felt that familiar rage building in his chest, the one that showed up whenever he encountered well-meaning stupidity. "New plan," he announced. "Marcus, how long before you can get the ship's systems back online?" "Give me 10 minutes, Marcus replied, already moving toward the Relentless. "Sarah, prep for immediate departure. Elena, with me. We're going to get Lunavex." "What about the sky hunters?" Sarah asked. "They're not going to just let us leave." Jake looked around at the magnificent creatures surrounding them, their energy wings pulsing with contentment. They thought they were being good hosts. They thought they were preserving something precious. They had no idea they were committing murder through kindness. "We're going to have to explain it to them," Jake said. "The hard way." He walked toward the largest sky hunter, the one that seemed to be in charge, and began projecting thoughts as clearly as he could. Images of Lunavex dying, of environmental suits failing, of the difference between preservation and imprisonment. The sky hunter's reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. Its song changed to something that sounded like distress, confusion, genuine grief. Other sky hunters gathered around, their harmonies becoming more agitated as they realized what their human was trying to tell them. They didn't know, Elena breathed. They really didn't know they were hurting her. More images flashed through Jake's mind, this time from the sky hunters. Their confusion about the strange creature that had arrived in the mechanical shell, their attempts to make her comfortable, it's their growing concern as she became weaker, despite their best efforts. They thought the environmental suit was part of her, Jake realized. They don't understand the concept of artificial life support. The Sky Hunter leader made a sound that was unmistakably a question, and Jake felt its desperate desire to understand, to help, to make things right. Yes, Jake said aloud, knowing the creature couldn't understand his words but hoping it could sense his emotions. Yes, we can help her, but we need to take her away from here, to a place where she can survive. The reaction was immediate. Several sky hunters began singing in distress, their wings flashing with agitation. Jake felt their panic, their desperation not to lose this precious new specimen. They think we want to steal her, Elena said. Because that's exactly what we're doing, Marcus pointed out, jogging back from the ship. Systems are online, but Captain, we've got a problem. There are about 50 sky hunters between us and open space, and they don't look happy. Jake looked around at the creatures surrounding them. Their beautiful song had become something more urgent, more protective. Energy began crackling between their wings, and Jake realized they were preparing to defend their collection. Time for Plan B, he announced. What's Plan B? Zara asked. I have absolutely no idea, Jake replied. Zara, get out here. We need you. Zara emerged from the ship, her skin cycling rapidly through different shades of purple and silver. The moment the sky hunters saw her, their song changed again, becoming questioning, curious. They recognize me as the same species as my mother, Zara said, her voice shaking. They want to know why I'm not in a habitat. Tell them, Jake said. Show them. Make them understand that some species need to be free to survive. Zara stepped forward, and Jake watched in amazement as she began to glow. Her skin shifted to patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the sky hunter's wings. She was communicating with them directly, using some form of bioluminescent language that bypassed the need for sound or telepathy. The conversation that followed was unlike anything Jake had ever witnessed. Patterns of light danced between Zara and the sky hunters, complex equations of color and intensity that conveyed concepts human language couldn't even approach. He watched emotions play across the creature's energy wings, confusion, understanding, grief, and finally, something that looked like acceptance. The sky hunter leader let out a long, mournful note, and suddenly all the creatures were moving. They flowed toward Luna Vex's greenhouse with liquid grace, their wings working together to carefully, gently, extract the unconscious xenobiologist from her beautiful prison. They understand now, Zara said, tears streaming down her face. They understand that love sometimes means letting go. Elena was already running toward Luna Vex with her medical kit, while Marcus and Sarah prepped the ship for immediate departure. Jake watched the sky hunters carefully transfer the unconscious woman, their movements gentle as a mother's touch. She's alive, Elena called out. Barely, but alive. But get her into the medical bay now. As they lifted Luna Vex onto a stretcher, Jake felt the sky hunter leader's attention focus on him again. More images flashed through his mind, gratitude for showing them the truth, sorrow for their mistake, and something else. The request. They want to know if they can visit, Jake said in amazement. They want to learn more about other species, how to interact without causing harm. Tell them yes, Zara said immediately. Tell them that there are others who would love to meet them, who can teach them about different forms of life. Jake projected agreement, acceptance, friendship. The sky hunter's response was a song of pure joy that made the entire platform resonate like a bell. 20 minutes later, the Relentless was clear of the planet's atmosphere, with Lunar Vex stable in the medical bay and a very different relationship with the Sky Hunters than anyone had expected. Status report, Jake called out as they reached safe distance. Luna's responding to treatment, Elena reported. She'll be fine, though she's going to need several weeks of recovery time. This navigation system's nominal, Sarah added. We're clear for FTL jump whenever you're ready. Communications array is picking up something interesting, Marcus said. The Sky Hunters are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. I think they're trying to contact other species, introducing themselves. Jake leaned back in his captain's chair and smiled. Well, that's going to make the Galactic Council's day interesting. Zara was sitting beside her mother's bed in the medical bay, holding one of Luna's hands in two of her own. Captain Morrison, she said over the comm, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, Jake replied. Wait until your mum wakes up and finds out she accidentally started the first interspecies diplomatic contact with living energy beings. She might not forgive us for the paperwork. She'll be thrilled, Zara laughed. This is exactly the kind of breakthrough she always hoped for. What about the Sky Hunters? Elena asked. Are they really going to be okay with letting their specimens go? They're not specimens anymore, Zara said softly. They're going to be guests. Visitors. Friends, maybe. The Sky Hunters want to build proper facilities for different species, places where beings can visit safely and leave when they choose. They want to turn their nest into an interspecies cultural exchange center. Jake grinned. From kidnappers to diplomats in one afternoon. Not bad for a day's work. Captain, Sarah announced, I'm getting a transmission from Galactic Council headquarters. They want a full report on our mission status. Tell them mission accomplished, Jake said. One rescued xenobiologist, one first contact situation resolved peacefully, and approximately 50 giant space birds who want to become the galaxy's newest tourist destination. Should I mention the part where we deliberately got ourselves captured? Marcus asked. Let's save that for the full debrief, Jake decided. Some stories are better told in person. As the Relentless jumped to FTL, carrying them home through the star-scattered darkness, Jake reflected on the day's events. They'd set out to rescue one alien scientist from well-meaning captors and ended up facilitating what might be the most important first contact in galactic history. Not bad for a species too stupid to know when something was impossible. In the medical bay, Lunar Vex stirred in her sleep, dreaming of magnificent creatures made of light and energy, and of the day when different species would no longer be strangers in the vast darkness between the stars. Above them all, the Sky Hunters sang their ancient songs to the cosmos, but now their melodies carried new themes, friendship, understanding, and the joy of discovery shared freely among the children of the stars.